Welcome back to the Inger Show. We have a very special guest with us today. Michelle Medlin has a special heartstrings connection to the crisis in Haiti, and she's with us today to share with us her story and how she has brought some more connection to what's going on there in Haiti. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Can you share with our audience what exactly is your connection with the people of Haiti?
Yeah, sure. My connection with the folks from Haiti is that I adopted 2 children from Haiti, and they've actually been home about since January 31st, 2 years ago. So when you look at when I went to Haiti to pick up my children, I was actually in Haiti 2 years ago to the week that the disaster started to occur. Wow. And so that process and knowing folks in Haiti, both of my children's birth parents are still in Haiti. So we're waiting for word on how they are. I keep in touch with the orphanage in which we adopted the children from. The orphanage itself has been destroyed. The children are sleeping on the streets. The guest house that we stayed at, which is right across the street from the orphanage, is destroyed. The gentleman who ran the guest house worked for room and board, and his wife was a teacher. And so he doesn't have a job anymore, and they fled and don't have a place to live, and so they're living on the streets. And so it's very difficult. It brings a different perspective to it when there's folks that you actually know that are going through that. I mean, it's a devastating event no matter what you think about it, but when you know folks that are there, it just it kind of puts it all into perspective.
How is it when you're watching the stories and the headlines? Mm-hmm. How do you feel when you're viewing those?
It's very hard for me to watch. I watched probably the first couple of days, and we cried a lot, and then I kind of can't watch it any longer. I mean, I've had my fill, so to speak, and so I choose to try to focus on the positive things that we can do to try and help Haiti, help those folks that are here that are looking for loved ones that they've lost and they can't find. And so I choose not to watch that. We don't watch the news and things like that when the kids are around. Mm-hmm. Being only 4 years old, it's just not something at this point that we're ready to talk about with them. I think it would cause too much stress because we do talk about their Haiti parents. And so I don't want them to have to worry about where they are and what they're going through. So we'll approach that subject at a later date with them.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, how do you think the future is going to map out as far as, do you plan on trying to work with the orphanage that was there? Are they trying to reestablish themselves, of course, after things have settled?
That's a great question. Of course, I'd love to be involved with the orphanage, help them reestablish. The difficult thing at this point in time is with electricity being sparse at best, phone lines still being down. We've had very limited contact with the orphanage director. I think we've gotten 2 texts that just says that she's okay, the children are okay, and that Western Union was coming back up so that we could try and get some money together, that she could go and get money, because she would basically shop for 2 days at a time. And so after 2 days, she's without food. And with no banks or things like that being open for a period of time, she didn't have any money to go buy food. So once we can establish contact with her again, then we'll most definitely get involved and help her in any way that we can. Of course, I'd love to get on a plane. It's just, at this juncture, it just isn't even possible.
Now, you have beautiful children. Can you tell us about them? How was that transition here, and what has it been like for you as a parent?
It's been a whirlwind. It's the best thing that I could have ever done. So I went from having no children to having 2 two-year-olds in the house. And the good thing about Haiti is being an hour-and-a-half flight from the United States from Miami. I was able to go down every 3 months or so and spend 4 or 5 days with them. So we had started to develop that bond. So the transition was really pretty easy. I mean, we went through the normal things of, you know, hoarding food and things like that, but we worked through it real quick. The language adaptation, little kids are like sponges. So within a matter of days, it was mommy up or mommy food or, you know, hungry. So it was really quick. And today, I mean, you've seen them, you've had a chance to interact with them. They are vivacious and loving, and they're like any other 4-year-old that's running around Northwest Arkansas. I mean, they say crazy things, they do crazy things. We're in the process of learning to dress ourselves at home. And so this morning, Zane, my son, comes in and he's got his Spider-Man underwear on backwards, and he's put his shirt on, you know, with the collar first, and pants were inside out. And I said, well, we need to probably maybe
work this out.
He said, no, this looks good. And they're just great little people, and they are just little people.
You are such a great spokesperson and champion for adoption. I know that after hearing of your adoption, I've thought about what it would be like.
Yeah.
What was the process like for you, start to finish? How long did it take?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they abbreviate that with this crisis so that the children that really need the placement.
Sure.
Can
So
get
specifically with Haiti, the start to finish process with us was about 18 months, give or take a couple days. It's with it, when you're working with any third world country, the information that you get is limited. But I truly believe that your children find you, and so these kids happen to find me. And there's, you have to have home studies, and you have to have, the typical proof financial means to be able to care for somebody else and that kind of stuff. And then the process just sort of goes through. And with Haiti, it's really different. Everything's done in paper. You don't use computers or anything like that. So we were waiting for our son to be able to come home, and there was one last piece of paper that we needed to be filled out, and it couldn't be filled out because the information was in this book. And when I say this book, it's probably this wide by this wide, and it's this thick, and you literally open it like this. And so they had to wait for that book to come from a different country, a different area in the country, to fill it out. So the process can be as easy as you want to make it. You find things to occupy your time while you're waiting. You make visits. You do scrapbooks. You do all those things that that you won't necessarily have time to do when the kids come home. Anyone who's thinking about it, I would tell you, jump in with both feet and do it. I know that Haiti right now, with the children that have already been placed, meaning that the Haitian end of adoption is finished, and as far as Haiti's concerned, you can come to the United States. The problem is you have to, at the point that process ends, you still have about another 6 months for the United States to go in and review all the paperwork and ensure that they are orphans and issue visas and passports and things, and that takes about 6 months. So what they're doing now is anyone who's at the end, just waiting for the United States to complete, they're expediting the process and allowing for kids to come home. What I'm unclear about is whether or not they're allowing them to come home to their forever families, or whether or not they're having to be placed in the foster care system until they can come home. Because what's happening with the children who came out of the Bresma orphanage that went to Pennsylvania, that was about 54 kids, my understanding with those children is that they're going to go into the system until the process can be finished. So,
into our foster care system?
Yes. And so from a parent, that just breaks my heart, because they've already been given up for adoption. They've been in Haiti, they've gone through this earthquake, they've been evacuated from their country, evacuated from everything that they know. They're going to come to the United States, and a lot of these children are older. And they're going to go into the foster care system for 6 months, maybe 3 months, depending upon how fast they can expedite the paperwork, and then go to their family that's truly waiting for them. And so I'm hoping through phone calls that are being made, petitions that are being circulated and signed, that maybe that won't happen. But you never know. I mean, everybody I know is working with the best interest of the children at heart.
Yes, and it's always the bureaucracy and the legalities of the situations, and hopefully with all eyes on this crisis, they'll be able to expedite those processes, because I know we have wonderful foster parents out there, but from the child's perspective, like you said, that's one more transition for them to make.
Correct.
Now, for all the people out there that want to help with the crisis, we have some wonderful organizations that you have worked with in the past.
Correct. I would, if anybody's wanting to help and get involved, of course, if you're a doctor or a nurse and have the ability to go down and help firsthand, great, do that. But I always tell folks at this point in time, there's 2 organizations that I would donate to. One being the Red Cross, and the second one being Yele Haiti. And while I've been in Haiti, I've actually seen the work that organization does. So I feel very comfortable telling folks to send whatever they can there. And I've over the course of these last 8 or 9 days, have been asking my friends can you forego your manicure this week? Can you give up a couple Starbucks and just divert whatever you can to those organizations to help, because they are in desperate, dire need of help.
Yes, and it does make a difference. And My mom, who doesn't text, actually called my cousin and said, well, I'm going to give you my $10. Will you go ahead and put this text in for me? So I think that it is tugging on everyone's hearts, and people are trying and looking for ways in which they can help. Michelle, thank you so much for coming and sharing this beautiful story. And I hope that our listeners out there get involved with this, because it really is, love is the key to addressing the situation and bringing more visibility to the adoption. I think it's going to help the healing after everything gets settled. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.